don't hear that? Now can you hear me? What? Quit making that face. Can you hear me?
I'm gonna whack my house. The one. Hi, 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 hi. Hello, hello. Did you receive it finally? You know what? I went in my mailbox and it was still a draft in my mailbox. I never sent it. I had prepared it, never sent it. Good. Hmm? Yeah, I feel ready. Yeah. I feel, yes, once. And then I have another thing on Saturday that I'm doing twice for something else. Yeah. Both.
I had Heather and Travis rework it. I can have it by tomorrow morning.
Okay.
That made you nervous. I know, I should have come back. I thought about your house.
I'm like, wait, no,
At least this way, not.
they just need to tell people it's coming.
Remember Madagascar? You were Madagascar.
No.
It's a cartoon movie.
Okay.
And someone
Oh,
goes,
did
"You
they
fat-"
dance?
Yeah.
Yes,
You're
yes,
like,
yes.
"Bad kitty."
I love it.
Yes.
Hey, Andy, I haven't seen you in a while.
I know.
What is
You want
that?
more? Oh, you got some?
No, I'll take one, because I'm almost out.
Yeah. Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. How's your mom?
Mama's good. Stepdad's still not home yet. It was bad. He supposed to be like an hour and a half, 2 hour surgery. It was over 4 hours. Then they had to intubate him, put him in ICU. So then they got to sedate him more. And, Friday he went to, I'm sorry, Andy. Friday he went to Episcopal Home for rehab. I'm hoping this Friday to get him home. Tomorrow we take him to the doctor for follow-up. Well, it's really the nurse practitioner to take his Foley catheter out.
Right.
Hopefully that'll help him speed some healing along. It's been a long couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know.
And I got sick the
And
weekend.
with both of them,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I was sick the weekend before. So that what that creates is he's not home at night. So now we're all
Yes.
sleeping there, and you know it's just been a real.
And your body's running down. That's
I was sick that weekend, and I'm still not quite over it. And I'm like, I'm really ready to go to bed.
yeah.
So
And this weather doesn't help either, with the rain, the darkness.
I told Pat I wouldn't be there tomorrow night. In part, stuff for them that. And my husband's like, I want to take you to dinner.
No,
I
it's
want-
important, yeah.
So I'll catch Shane stuff another time.
And you know what, I might have him do it for the board.
I would love it. I
As a
think
workshop,
it would be
because I think
perfect.
it would be a great workshop.
I do too.
Because it was like, I want to see it again and again, because there was so much
Yeah.
that I just want to learn more.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's good, yeah.
I keep trying to tell him, keep doing what you're doing because what you're doing.
I know,
You're
sometimes
right
it's
on.
discouraging.
I said, you're a leader in it.
He is.
Keep doing it.
He is. And he's gotten some social studies teachers on board, so,
Good.
you know,
It's great.
yeah,
And
no problem.
What's the name of the outside company that we use? We let them come into our facility.
For therapeutic
For
support,
therapeutics.
Healing Connection.
You don't charge, okay. And we don't charge it, right? It's a service.
Oh, I told you that before.
I know.
Because I
I'm
know.
just- other districts are-
Genesee Valley is, not, yeah, Genesee Mental Health, or whatever it's called now. They are charging. Yeah, I kept that quiet, yeah. They presented an information exchange, and they mentioned that. And I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, that's why Andy was asking the question.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, we don't pay a dime.
And
You would have seen it in your budget line.
They're only offering services that we don't offer as a district, correct? So
Therapeutic
it's
support.
the same, yeah,
Yeah.
to students.
Correct.
And
Who needs
families?
more long-term, no families, just the
Okay.
students. They're making the access to no families.
So it's just, yeah, we're just providing access to
Space network, and that's it, and then the referrals. They do it's their paperwork, it's not ours. It's the parents' insurance that gets charged. We have nothing to do with it other than giving them space and making it available. It's a service that
Doesn't mean I
we
remember the leader.
so that parents don't have any excuses to say, I don't have the time, or, you know, it takes me 2 months to get my child care. And now you have something in-house, or in district that they can utilize if they so choose, but it's an option. You're not
Real
forced to,
question
but
is,
it's an
how did I
option. If your kid needs it, then there's an excuse. You don't have to say, oh, I can't take them because blah, blah, blah.
So it's a community service. Law.
It is a community
I
service.
looked at
Yes,
the,
it's a community
just
service,
sitting in front
and,
of it, I saw that,
so it's just,
and then I didn't watch past it, that's all I watched. 10 seconds, we're going to call this meeting to order. All right, here we go. I will call this meeting to order and ask all those willing and able to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, and welcome. I remind everyone to turn your mics on, and because we are live streaming, please leave your mics on throughout the meeting. And let me start with some quick introductions. I'm Board President Bob Cook, and to my left is
Bo Wright, Superintendent of Schools.
George Day Marteau, attorney for the district.
Hi everyone, Anne-Marie Straczynski, board member. Good evening, Nikki LaPlaca, board member.
Good evening, Pat McHugh, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources.
Dina Wilson, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction.
Hi, Andy Whitmore, Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations.
Good evening, Nella Nassam, Assistant Superintendent of Student and Family Services.
Hi, I'm Irene Fung, Student Representative.
Good evening, May Abdullah, board member.
Good evening, Diane McBride, board member.
Hi everyone, Karen Flanagan, school district clerk.
Good evening, Jennifer Laird, board vice president.
and Board Member James O'Brien is homesick tonight, unfortunately. In terms of agenda review, we are adding one item to our agenda, item 13D, pertaining to transportation contract termination. And I believe that's the only change to our agenda. There are no announcements, so we will go right to the school board recognition.
Well, as many of you know, this is School Board Recognition Week, and tonight we would like to recognize our dedicated board members for all that you do in service of our kids and our community. I don't think folks always realize the time, effort, and energy that goes into these positions, but we're truly appreciative for all the support that you give us. We're appreciative not only for your diligence and your hard work, but for your commitment to always doing what's right for kids. So I would like to present you with a small token of appreciation, starting with our president, Mr. Bob Cook.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our Vice President, Jennifer Laird. This is May Abdullah. This is Nikki LaPlaca. I know we're dancing up here.
Close quarters.
This is Diane McBride. James is absent tonight, but is here with us in spirit, so we'll give him his gift, if you will, when we see him. And this is Anne-Marie Straczynski. Again, thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks on behalf of the entire board. Really appreciate it. And thank you to all of you. That will bring us to our report from our student representative. So Irene, you're on.
So our student council has been continuing to work on our environmental initiative. So our student council has arranged a meeting with our food service director, Mr. Torres, on November 19th to discuss alternatives to styrofoam, the styrofoam food trays, because we know that it's not biodegradable and can be harming our environment. And the senior class council is also currently planning to have a semi-formal dance that will be open to the entire school as a way to kind of raise school spirit and also as a fundraiser for our senior class. And our student council will also be sending representatives to our Monroe County Rock to Change Student Summit on Race and Social Justice. And Many of the representatives going this year will be sophomores and juniors, which is really important because our school district will actually be hosting the Rock to Change Summit next year. So there are a lot of exciting things happening, but that's it for the report.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I
Appreciate
did
it.
volunteers for that next year.
Okay, very good. All right. That brings us to our public forum. This portion of the public forum is for items that are not on our agenda, and we would ask speakers to try to limit themselves to about 3 minutes. If someone here would like to address us about a topic that is on the agenda, you can do that at the time the agenda item comes up by just flagging our attention, and we will recognize you at that time. So far, we have 2 speakers signed up. We're not limited to that if others are moved to come and speak. But our first speaker is Kim Glanton. Come on up.
More than 3 minutes. Shots kidding. Is this on? 'Cause
If it's green, it's on.
It's green.
Okay.
Okay. I'm Kim Glanton. I am a district math coach between the 2 junior highs. Put 100 miles on my car in the month of September. Somebody must have verified that. I'm speaking on behalf of teachers, and I just want to give I was hired by Dr. McKenna. He was the superintendent of schools at that time. Joanne Jafrida was the director of human resources. This is 1996. I have worked with so many math teachers over the years, and like any good math teacher, we record things. So Brian Usman can attest to this. We have recorded snow days in the district since 1971, little chart. And, but in terms of the teachers that I have worked with and had the pleasure of working with, I stopped counting at 87. That is just at the senior high school. It would be triple, I think, now that I'm going between the 2 junior highs after the restructuring. But I just wanted to share something. Last week I had one of those days that I think we all have, where Dina thinks I was kidding. I was in the fetal position in the back of my car in Burger parking lot, crying, just wondering what am I doing, what am I going, what is going on. Good weekend, come back, here I am again. Smile on my face, getting it done, working with math teachers. But as every teacher has, I have that good memory file, just to kind of remember, why am I doing this? Why am I a teacher? So this is a relic. I don't think they do this anymore. It's the RH Factor from 2011. I am only just going to read, it's an article that a student wrote back then. I'm going to kind of leave out all the names because I just want you to get the impression. It's Those Who Make the Real Difference is what the student titled it. As a senior who's on the verge of graduation, it's obvious that I have one of the more seasoned perspectives on how the school operates when it comes to the student perception. Even more so, I am able to distinguish what has had the greatest impact on my experience at Rush-Henrietta with that knowledge. From the several years of my high school experience, I am under the firm impression that it is the teachers that really make the difference. From the first day that I walked through door to the unforgettable class to the last day of the legendary class, I knew both in my heart and my mind that it is the unconditional effort of the teachers that really make the difference. Even though administrators have made a noble effort in attempting to have a substantial impact on academic and behavioral reform, it is clear that the actions taken by teachers throughout the building on a daily basis have been much more effective in influencing students. John Adams once said that there are 2 educations. One should teach us how to make a living, and the other how to live. Even though the teachers throughout my high school career have been incredibly insightful and competent, it is the thought of teaching us how to live on a personal and daily basis that truly makes an impact. To say that my teachers have left a lasting impact which will accompany me for the many years to come is an understatement. I cannot express my gratitude enough for the outstanding relationships, both professional and personal, that I have built with the many teachers I have worked with. All I can say is that their efforts are greatly appreciated and have had a profound impact on the direction of my life. The student listed 20 staff members, and I am proud to say that 17 of them are still here.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Our next speaker is Sheila Buck.
Hi, Sheila Buck, President of the Rush-Henrietta Employees Association Teachers Chapter. And I didn't know that I was also hired in 1996 with Kim Glenton, evidently. In recognition of School Board Appreciation Week, I would like to recognize the efforts of the board and thank you for all you do. I do this on behalf of the members of the Rush-Henrietta Employees Association. We certainly appreciate the hours it takes to be prepared for these bi-weekly meetings, as well as the numerous other committees and numerous, I was here when you all signed up, numerous other committees and drop-ins that Rush-Henrietta Board of Ed members take part in. It's no small feat to be a board member, and your efforts on behalf of our community are valued. In addition, the diversity of persons at this table suggests that the board realizes there is strength in a diverse decision-making body. One issue between the district and the RHEA teachers has been the professional use of time. Too often, teachers feel their voice is not heard, is not considered, or even worse, heard but dismissed. We are a large district with many moving parts. Teachers understand we are one part of the equation. However, differences add to sound decision-making. It's not just the race or gender that's important. The diversity of ideas and opinions is also important. By optimizing the mix of people, it is possible to leverage the contributions of the team for better outcomes. In other words, if we improve the employee experience, we get better outcomes. The tone is set by the leadership. When all sides are considered, it is more likely that decisions will positively impact the district. Teachers know we have valuable information to share. You may be told that teachers have been asked. You may be told that teachers can go to an administrator anytime. A recent article in Education Week indicates that while administrators think 75% of teachers will come to them with a problem, the fact is that only 25% of teachers will do so. The RHEA speaks for all teachers. We are asking for a voice in our profession. We are asking for time to do our jobs and the recognition that, like you, we are dedicated to this community. 17 people still here that student recognized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board at this time? Seeing no one, we will close the public forum and move into the agenda, beginning with number 8, our consent agenda for items of routine nature, which include various change orders, approval of field trips, our Committee on Special Education recommendations, as well as the approval of minutes of our last meeting. So I will accept a motion to approve the consent agenda, moved by Nikki, seconded by Jennifer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. The consent agenda is approved, which brings us to number 9, our personnel actions. I will accept a motion to approve personnel, moved by Diane and seconded by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion on personnel? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. It is approved. That brings us to our workshop on the secondary program course guide.
All set?
We're ready.
Then I'll just take a seat up here because we have 2 workshops tonight. The first one is the secondary program course guide. I'm sure everyone got a copy of the guide and the attached memo. I'm happy to share with you that in this year's guide, we are introducing 2 new courses. Granted, won't be taking courses this year. This is for next year, so when students start enrolling for their courses, is that the Algebra 1 and manufacturing processes, the whole hands-on learning to math that we're combining with our tech course will go into effect starting next year. So that was introduced in the program guide this year. And then the other addition to the courses is drawing and painting 2. This is where I talked to you in the spring about adding some more art electives that are half-year that the kids can take and fit into their schedules. Half-year courses for our juniors and seniors sometimes are very favorable in addition to some full years. So as far as courses go, they're the 2 new additions. I just want to bring to your attention that there was some program information that was in the back of the resource that, based off of feedback, it would be helpful to have it in the front. So there's a lot of new information in the front of the book opposed to the back of the book. The other thing that we've added on page 2 and 6 was some more explanation around our career and technical education program. If you recall, probably about 4 years ago, the board gave approval for us to become a CTE endorsed school district. We had a board member who served in that. It was Bob Bauer at the time. Worked very closely with our director of social studies and a committee of teachers and community representatives. So we're at the point now that since becoming a CTE endorsed school district, that we now have about 12 kids this year that are eligible to get the endorsement, because you have to start taking those courses your freshman year and working up to it. So we noticed that even though we got information on the website, we have a brochure we hand out, the business teachers as well as our CTE advisor does a lot of good work around that, we need to get more information in the program book for parents and students to have access to. So we've added some more information in there in the business section of the guide, as well as in the very front of the program overviews. If you go to page 17, that's the overview of our junior high school courses. You will notice that starting next year, our 2 half-year courses, Applied Art and Applied Music, which started around the STEAM days when we had that grant for STEAM and we developed those courses and we gave them an overhaul 2 years ago. We're going to do one more overhaul to those 2 courses so they meet the criteria for students to take those courses and receive the arts credit for commencement. So what we're finding is, even though it's a small population, as I study our 10th graders this year and their transcripts, based on what they took as 8th and 9th graders in a new junior high school program, we do find that students that are in our ICOP program that go to Learning Lab, E&L students that need to get extra services, AIS students that go to different learning labs also, that their study halls and their elective opportunities are quite often utilized for their support services. So to get a full credit of art or music in 8th or 9th grade is kind of tough. So we're going to take those 2 half-year courses, give it one more overhaul to make sure that we have all the criteria in those courses to meet the arts requirement. Therefore, students that are tight for elective time could take a half-year art, applied art in 8th grade, and a half-year music art in 9th grade and fulfill that 1 credit requirement. Or if they're in the 9th grade ensemble, they get a half credit and they take a half-year art. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we give equitable opportunities even for those kids that have to utilize some of their elective blocks towards support time. So I'm very proud of that because I think that's going to be a huge shift to really help all kids when we're trying to work towards making sure that they go into their senior high school experience on the even playing field. The other addition to that, if you go to the online access of the course, the program guide, there are hyperlinks now embedded within our Project Lead the Way description. And we did we reworked it in the book, but we also embedded links. We were getting some feedback from parents, and Travis also helped us from the parent perspective as well as community relations perspective on how to better inform parents about the Project Lead the Way courses, how students get credit for it, how do you apply for it. Believe it or not, you don't have to pay for the credit until your senior year. You don't have to pay for the credit when you're taking the course, because some colleges accept the Project Lead the Way credit and some don't. So we don't want our parents spending money if they don't have to, if their child's going to a college that doesn't accept it. But also, if you hit your senior year and you find out that some of those Project Lead the Way courses could be accredited over, we found a system and we have explained it on how you can go back and be able to get those credits. So with that being said, for Project Lead the Way, this is the first time we're putting hyperlinks into our online resource of our guide. So we're going to really track it and see how many people are using the links. Because last year, for the first time ever, we did not do an automatic mailing of the program guide to every family. It was based off of feedback we were getting. We put it online, and if families wanted a book, they contacted the main office, we mailed it out. So to give you a sense, we ordered 550 program guides last year, kept them in the main offices. Based on what we monitored for going out, this year we're only ordering 250, and we're still going to have a cushion. So people are really utilizing the online program guide, and not giving the hard copy did not seem to be a hardship for anyone. In fact, just preferred doing the online. So we still order hard copies for parents, students that want it. We still use them around the district quite a bit just to open up and reference. But the online attribute of the program guide is shown to be very favorable. So we're going to start thinking about adding some links to there like we did with Project Lead the Way, so it can be more of an interactive use with our guide. We even went down the road to go in a direction where we could even have students maybe speaking about some of the courses. So if you're interested in taking a course, you can go online, click and see what students have said about the course, or maybe have teachers speak to it. So we're real excited about starting to add links and knowing that people are going online for this guide, because I think it's going to open up a whole new world on how we can share our programs and our courses with students. So that's the 2021 program guide. It seems weird to think that we're talking about 2021 already, but for our students to start utilizing in January. So questions?
Anyone, questions? All right, no questions.
No questions, okay.
We
so
can
I
go
look
on to
forward-
the workshop on
Okay.
instructional program update.
All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is that fun time of the year that even though we're well into this school year, we take the time to reflect back on last school year. And what I want to do is take a couple minutes to give you a quick analysis of the written report that's in our whole district end of the report, as well as our end of the year around instructional programming. So to highlight some of the action steps that we did take last year based on a review of the previous year, is around the area of curriculum. We still continue to find ways to fine tune and work on obviously our ELA program. The one thing I do want to note is that we did do a major audit of our 7th and 8th grade ELA program last year. If you remember last year, this time when I sat before you, I was very, very concerned about the downward trend that we had over the last 3 years in the area of 7th and 8th grade. So the good news is we went in there, we worked a lot with the teachers, we had a consultant from BOCES come in and look at our curriculum, visit classrooms with us, look at our assessments. So that was a big chunk of our work last year, which led us to a new program that we're implementing this year. In addition, we have some new entrance screening process, K through 6 for ELA and math. One thing we found out too was our students were coming to us and we were waiting too long to realize what they needed and didn't need. By the time you get the transcripts from other schools or you get the records or whatever. So we have some new processes in place right off the bat so we can get kids what they need in a timely and responsive manner. And then in math, we just had some new units. That was the 7th and 8th grade Eureka got implemented last year. So we had to develop the curriculum with that. And we did take the interim assessments that were previously in 2nd and 3rd grade and roll that up to 4, 6, including a student reflection protocol. And hopefully you saw even some of those things occurring when we looked at instruction last year, because I know a lot of these things you saw in action during our board visits last year. So from the area of instruction, we did implement some specific units and did a lot more work around independent reading. And also in ELA, our students did a lot of preparing with embedded skills for that online ELA computer-based testing we did last year. When it comes to math, did a lot of work around our read, draw, write. We heard that just last week when we were over at Winslow, so that work is continuing in this year. And we also introduced some more diagnostic tools for classroom teachers to use. I think it's to be noted that our high school teachers spend a lot of time in our junior high schools and even our intermediate schools looking at that consistency in the terminology, the vocabulary, and the strategies we're using in our K-8 program to grow up into our high school. So that was a lot of good work done last year. In assessments, we did more online assessments in our own platforms, so students be prepared for the CBT. As you know, we took that in ELA. Very happy that we did the ISTE capstones, second year for third grade, and our first full implementation at 6th, and we got to 9th grade a year earlier. So all 3 of those assessments were given last year. We implemented the interim assessments we developed. And also for 7th and 8th grade, when you adopt the Eureka Math program, we also developed new assessments to go with it. In addition, we did some fine tuning in geometry, which you'll see yielded some very favorable results in our assessments last year at the Regents level. And we're also encouraging more formative assessments so our teachers can be more diagnostic. And like I mentioned earlier, we audited not just the curriculum for our 7th and 8th grade ELA curriculum, but we also audited the assessments. And we heard a lot of concerns on behalf of teachers regarding the length of some of our math assessments, so we've done a lot of tweaking to those. And again, I think you saw some examples of that last week, and even tonight in Instructional Council, we highlighted some of those changes that have been made. In the area of intervention, we're doing more diagnostic reading tools and resources. Many of our teachers continue to attend what we call the LETTERS training. It's a language acquisition and reading strategy course that they can take throughout the year, and they're doing that with some other school districts through BOCES. And we offered a new writing class last year as an intervention at 7th grade, and continue to do some additional responsive instruction in the area of reading and math. And I think even last year you saw some boot camps happening in our elementary schools working with the fluency. So we were real excited about some of those interventions. So based on all that, how do we do? Because remember, every year we try to think, what do we need to do differently to improve our results? So we're going to start with ELA, and this is taken right from the document. What I want to bring to your attention overall is, if you, as you can see, we've had a little bit of a dip from last year, from year to year, and in addition, we've had some dips when you follow the cohorts. So if you look at a 3rd grader, last year was at 63%. Now this year, when they went to 4th grade, they dropped to a 52. So in summary, if you look at our ELA data, we are concerned because we are identifying some slides as a district. Last year when I sat here, I said we had a steady increase going for the last 10 years. This is the first year ever we've seen a little bit of a dip. So we're going to be doing a lot of deep diving into this. We tend to believe that we've spent a lot of time with math when we think about the time for professional development, the conference period times. A lot of it was given to math, where this year we're going back to ELA and giving the teachers a lot more support around ELA and looking at some of our instructional practices around that. The good news is, if you look at 7th and 8th grade, I like to think we stopped the bleeding, because if you go over to the county ranking, if you see historically how we were dropping in the county, at 7th grade we went from 13, 14, this year we popped up to 12. And then if you look at 8th grade, we were at 9, 13, we popped back up to 11. So even though our overall percentages have not increased dramatically, we're doing better on that test because we outperformed some other districts this year. So that's why I look at multiple measures, and we should always look at multiple measures, not one data point. You know, I want to look at how kids did from this year to last year. You want to follow cohorts. You also want to see how well we're beating our benchmarks. And then you also want to see how our rankings, because that rankings will help us determine, in case the test was unusually easy or hard in a given year, that keeps things in perspective. The other thing, and this is why I say I'm a little concerned, is if you look at the trend data. Trend data is a great place for us to go for long-term strategic planning, because you never want to take one year as a fact, because you could have a grade level that had a lot of teachers out that year for some given reason. With LTSs, you could have a stronger or weaker just cohort of kids coming through, so you never knee-jerk to 1 year. What you want to look at is a 3-year pattern. And to say a significantly difference in performance, we look at about a 3% change. So if you go to the trend column, those negatives and zeros have me concerned, because again, that shows where we have a little bit of slip going on. The good news is the place that we have a plus is 6th grade. So we're continuing to see favorable results with our 6th grade programming if you look over a 3-year trend. So we got our work cut out for us in ELA overall. I think 7th and 8th is going to be on the right swing because we had some program improvements. coming down the lane for that one, but 3 through 6, we just have to do a lot more analysis and do closer work with our teachers. But I'm very confident that we have some actions in place that you're going to hear about next week when we introduce the work for this year. Questions about ELA?
The 7th grade, like, the trend has been going down for ELA. I saw that you implemented Eureka, and when we were, Eureka, like an intervention. What sort of interventions are the 7th grade teachers able to give?
Are you talking about math?
No, well, when you were showing it, you showed that there's interventions for math, and like a lot of interventions. This slide's been going on. What sort of interventions are there for the ELA?
So we'll get to, for interventions for ELA at 7th grade.
Yeah.
Yes, we have our reading teachers working with the kids that have been identified. Our classroom teachers deliver interventions in their classroom in the way they group the students. But our reading teachers do most of the intervention work at our junior high school.
Are they using like that Pearson that we saw at Roth? Or is that the new curriculum?
Well, they're using the new curriculum this year. But for interventions, they have a variety of prescribed programs that they use depending on where students are having difficulty. Read 180, Wilson reading systems. They do some more of the Fountains of Pinnell work, and they do more around, like some kids that are reading significantly below grade level, they do some additional guided reading groups around that. So at the junior high school, they're very strategic in how they take kids to work with them, meaning that they think about where the students' needs are, and then they match the intervention to the needs. So they will group kids based on that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions?
About
for
ELA?
Ron? Nope.
All right, the only other thing I want to point out to you is we continue to watch our various cohort groups. As you'll see in the overall end of the year report for the district, Nirlana and I work very closely with the special ed teachers and program directors and coordinators and so forth to make sure that we're keeping our eye on how all our students are doing. The thing that we want to keep an eye on is that you will see there's a tight correlation with our special ed population, that when the overall grade level is up in performance, the special ed cohort comes up. When we see the overall drop, there's a drop on the special ed, which shows us is that the programming affects our special ed kids significantly. So that's why we continue to do a lot of work with our teachers knowing how to scaffold curriculum to meet the needs of all students. We closely watch our L students, and the other subgroup I added on this year is because the number is growing significantly, is our SES group. If you look at 6th grade, because in the parentheses is the amount of students in that group, we have, what does it say, 137? Look at 3rd grade, 193. So that is a group every year that continues to get larger in our district. And the good news is, you can see that, you know, they're holding their own in performance, but we do have a gap between them and our overall proficiency rate. So that's something we want to watch very closely. And that holds true if you look at 7th and 8th grade. Our gaps get bigger. You can see our L students are struggling right now in our 7th and 8th grade program that we have an eye on, working closely. The ELA director continues to work, has a very good relationship with Jamie, our district E&L support person. And in special ed, we got to keep our eye on that too. So, I mean, the reality is 7th and 8th grade does get a lot more difficult, but we need to be able to respond to that and be able to help the kids. So we're working on that. That's a number that Nirlana and I around special ed, as well as Jessica, are very well aware of and have action plans in place. I have a question. Oh, yeah.
The special ed, were those ICOT rooms, were those self-contained rooms? What sort of?
For this report right here, it's all our kids, any student with a disability is in that number. If you go to the special ed part of the overall end of the year district report that Bo has and it has in the packet, they do have it broken out by ICOT, self-contained, CT. So, but for the purpose of a district level report, we combined it all together. So we are looking at how kids perform in all those different programs, and Nirlana and Jessica and I continue to meet and have conversations.
And their growth.
And their growth, yeah, because you want to look at proficiency and growth.
Are the ICOT rooms going well? I mean,
right now, our data is not, we don't have any patterns that are picking up or trends. We have some classes that are doing well. We have other classes that aren't doing as well. So we need to give it some time to look more of a pattern over time. You gotta remember, we're just growing it at Crane. It was new at 7th and 8th grade last year, so we just gotta closely monitor that. So we don't have any hard data to say yay or nay just yet. Some areas we thought, okay, here's a little, we're onto something, this is looking good, and then we go to another course or another class, like, oh, this one isn't as well. So I think a lot has to do with the teachers that we have in classrooms and the training, and making sure they have the supports. You have some groups that have higher needs for students around attention, behavior, and all that. So there's a variety of variables that we got to look at, which I think is causing us not to have anything specific in trend data just yet. But we are monitoring in that, and you would see that in the special ed report.
And it's only been 1 year too, with the integrated iPad model at the K-3. It's only been 1 year, so with 1 year, you can't really have trend data.
So, but where we're seeing some good spots, we're asking questions like what is happening there and why do we see that? So in the areas that we don't see as much of a positive growth or proficiency, we're trying to think about what supports we can give them. So that's where our challenge is right now, is when you have a new program like that, trying to hone in and make sure everyone has what they need to be successful. Okay? When we go to math, now, about 5 years ago, I sat here and said the same thing I just said about ELA. And we had a hybrid model going on for our programming, and was extremely concerned. However, as you know, we've implemented a new program 2 years ago. We've done a lot around interventions, progress monitoring, really having some good strategic assessments that teachers can use information to guide their lessons. And I'm very, very happy to report, if you just take your eye over to that trend data, look at that, not one negative. So we're definitely making some good results there and a lot of pluses. And we did slip a little bit at 3rd grade, but we're pretty confident we know where that slippage came from that we're working on, and it's just some some different little cohort work that we need to do and work with some various classrooms. At 4th and 6th grade, as well as 7th, and look at 8th. I mean, look at where we went from 15th in the county up to 8th. We had 14% up to 32. Because remember, in 8th grade, our accelerated kids take the algebra. They don't take that. However, still the majority of our kids take 8th grade math. Because we don't, it's only, I say about 80 kids in our district accelerated. So that's our total population minus 80 students. So we were very concerned about that 8th grade number. So 1 year of Eureka Math, and look at the jump we took already. So that's a huge success story. So very, very excited about that. The 1 grade level that, in fact, we were just I was working with intermediate principals all day last Friday, is 5th grade. Let it be ELA or let it be math, we have to really think about what's happening with our 5th grade programming. So we have some conversations going on. We're doing a lot of professional development and really working with the teachers to say, what do we need to do to give you supports, and what do we need to do changing, if anything, in program, and just looking at some of the instructional practices we're doing, especially around interventions. So 5th grade overall is a grade level, let it be ELA or math, that we're watching closely. But as you can tell, very favorable results there. If you look at the cohort information there, again, we can see that we have still a little bit of a gap between our special ed kids. If you notice, if you would compare the ELA one, our L students are doing very well in our new math programs. We've seen a lot of growth in the L population this past year. And it's, one thing you need to remember is math is that constant language when it's to numbers and so forth. So it is sometimes common to see L students have a little bit of an easier time in math than they do with the English language when they have those competing languages that they're working through. But we do believe that a lot of the scaffolding and differentiation that comes in this new math program has been beneficial. We also see an improvement with our special ed students. If you compare special ed students in ELA opposed to math, they too have made some nice growth in math. So again, when we do overall program improvements and best instructional practices, all kids benefit from that. The SES number we're keeping our eye on, and watching our students' growth in that area too. And then if you get to 7th and 8th grade, you will see our improvements there significantly with all cohort groups. Okay. I know I'm going a little quick, but I'm just mindful of time. So any questions about math?
Nope.
Okay. Then, if you get to the ELA and math Regents results, ELA, we continue to do really well there. We did drop a little bit in our county ranking. We did a little analysis. The good news is last year at this time, we were concerned about our L students because they had a little bit of a drop, and thanks to our high school staff, we did a lot of programming things last year and scaffolding with L students. This year, the drop came more in the special ed cohort, so some of the strategies that we put in place for the L students, we are now working on with our students with disability, preparing them and helping them for that, especially that 11th grade program. Our math results stay pretty consistent. Again, you don't see any negatives in that trend line. So I'm overall with our secondary program with our ELA and our math regents, I'm very pleased. We did have a little bit of a dip in Algebra 2. We think that's more dependent on some of the cohort that was going through. So we got to watch that one a little bit because we don't like that slippage. But that can vary a little bit from year to year. So we'll just keep an eye on it. Because if you notice, we've been pretty consistent. This is the first year we had a dip in Algebra 2. I know you're at the junior high school now, but I'm still looking at you because I think of math in high school and you. So some good work there still at the high school. Even though this is in the written report, I thought it would be helpful for you to know. Here are our 5 regents. We call these our gateway regents classes because they're the ones that are linked to our students reaching the commencement level and passing with their regents diploma. There's the ELA results again. This past year we gave the new global regents. This is a whole new framework. This is really more about kids applying literacy skills and thinking skills with the conceptual knowledge that they've learned in social studies. This is all the new curriculum, Common Core social studies curriculum hitting, known as the frameworks. And we were very pleased with our results. Now, sometimes the first year a test comes out, the way the state does the curving and the rubric they give you can be favorable because as you're trying to shift your instruction and programs. So I'm hoping that this just isn't a little false positive because of a new test being administered. But if you look at even our cohort groups, one of the highest percentages in all the regions is of our cohort groups. So that global is a tough test content-wise, and now that it's the new exam, it's not just multiple choice and remembering facts and writing a little essay around it. You have to take documents and make inferences as well as the background knowledge you have about the frameworks and social studies. So kudos to our students and kudos to our teachers. Nice job around that, and Mark McMillan has done a great job leading that department, preparing for that, and so has the high school administrative staff. Algebra 1, we continue to watch that one, even though we do favorable, there is quite a curve on that one that we're very well aware of, and that's why we always keep our eye on that one, especially with their cohort groups. I'm going to take you down to the U.S. history, because there's 2 social studies tests required. We continue to do very, very well there too. The one that I'm saving for the end is the one that is rising to the level of a district priority, as well as the junior high schools will be putting this in their school improvement plans. Very concerned with a drop in earth science. I've studied our data this summer with our administrators and with our director of science, and over a 10-year period, this is the lowest we've ever reached. I'm very concerned about our special ed students sitting in our earth science classes. We have some concerns about kids getting through their labs in order to even be able to sit for the exams. So we have a very detailed strategic plan in place at the district level, as well as the building level. So this is something we really got to keep our eye on. At one point, we were at about a 90% passing rate. And since then, we have dropped significantly. So we got to really get a better handle on that. So that is one of my big priorities for this year, is working with our junior high school principals and our science director to really get in there and think about some of our practices. Okay?
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
The new social studies test, that's only looking, instead of, in the past, they've done 2 years, it's only the 1 year, so that makes a huge difference too,
Yes,
correct?
that is a good point.
Okay.
Yeah, historically, it was 2 years' worth of instruction. Now it's just the 10th grade year that they look at as far as an assessment point of view.
And the earth science, is this the, this would be the cohort that went through the reconfiguration? So correct?
Yeah, they were 7th graders, so they stayed at Berger for 8th grade in Roth.
Okay. Okay, I was just wondering how they fell into the.
Yeah, so the students that took the test last year as 8th graders were in the junior high schools at 7th graders.
Okay.
They just stayed.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, I do want to highlight real quick in closing, like I said, we did our capstones and we monitor our results on this, just like we do ELA and math. If you notice that the primary capstone was our second year of implementation, and last year we had a 79%, and this year an 89%. So we're really pleased with that. And then at the intermediate, a 68, and the junior high school is 66. So even though you would think a 66 and a 68 is not, you know, lighting the world on fire, we're very pleased with it because it's the first time kids took an assessment that's very applicable like that, where they have to work through a real life problem and use their critical thinking skills, their collaborating, communicating to put forth that last project. The teachers score that collaboratively with a rubric, and from that rubric, we give them time to do an analysis to inform what needs to change in our program, as well as what instructional practices need to happen in the classroom. So for the first time, you know, that's why the benchmarks are set where they are. We were very pleased. And we learned a lot from the first administration that teachers are working on making some changes this year within our programming and our instruction. So just want you to know that all that time and resource we're spending around the ISTE standards and shifting instructional practices, we are measuring it. And I do believe we're on the right track to start helping our students really think about some more transformed teaching and learning that's occurring in our classrooms to make them prepare for their college and career settings. So we're real excited about that. Reflections, questions, comments?
Anyone? Yes, sir.
Where was the low in science you said for the science testing you said was low at?
In earth science.
Earth science.
Earth science, yeah, that's, right now, all our 8th graders take earth science, and that occurs in our 8th grade year at our 2 junior high schools. We do have some students at the high school who still take it, and even in our alternative program, so we analyze their results too. But overall, the majority of the kids are in our junior high schools taking it.
So at our next meeting, we'll hear what we're going to be doing this year to address a lot of the things that we just talked about.
Yeah, because the next, now that we're doing all of our end of the year reports that you
Right.
have, our next step will be sharing with you our plans of work for the upcoming year.
Because
So.
we do have work to do.
We do,
can
we
see
do,
that.
but you know what, there is always work to do.
Right.
But the good news is we know where the work is. We have a great team of teachers and administrators looking at it, working together to be able to talk about what some of the next steps are. And there's a lot of success in there. I mean, if you really think, you know, when I looked at the Regents data, and I look at a lot of our cohorts, it pleases me to realize that even though we get really, really concerned that 3 through 8, you hit the Regents level and we show much, much better results for our students with disability and our L students as well as our SES group. So, you know, there's a big combination of things, hopefully that good foundation they're getting. I do think there's some maturity that happens with kids. We have a great high school program that helps prepare them for those exams. And at the end of the day, those are the exams that leads to graduation. The 3 through 8 assessments help prepare them for that, but that's where we keep our eye on. And you will see that because of our good results on our Regents exams, our commencement levels are staying, and we'll do that eventually when we look at some of our ESSA data down the road. But our commencement levels are staying up there due to the success we're having on those Regents results. So the good news is the differences in cohorts are not as discrepant when you hit the high school level. We just got to continue to work on it 3 through 8 to help our kids to be successful earlier, to prepare them for that secondary experience.
Very good.
So,
great.
okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm actually going to jump ahead and take number 13, new business, before we do the superintendent's report, if that's okay with the
Okay with me.
superintendent, because that's a lot of written reports. So let's start with 13A, which is the board's fourth quarter budget report. Any questions about that? Seeing none, we'll move to 13B, which is pardon me, action pertaining to the authorization of the superintendent of schools to enter into a settlement agreement and waiver of claims. We will accept a motion to approve that settlement. Moved by Diane, seconded by Jennifer. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. It is approved. Brings us to 13C, action pertaining to approval of a memorandum of agreement with the Administrators Association of Rush-Henrietta dated October 8, 2019 regarding long-term disability. I'll accept a motion to approve that. Moved by May, seconded by Nikki. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. It is approved. Brings us to 13D, which we added to the agenda. action pertaining to a transportation contract termination. I will accept a motion to approve it. Moved by Diane, seconded by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion related to that? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. It is approved, and that brings us to our superintendent's report.
All right. Okay, there were a number of written reports submitted for your review and consideration. I'm just going to briefly walk through each of them. The first item that was submitted is the end-of-year district priorities plan in its final form. We had to wait to upload some data into that, but it's been posted, and we wanted to make sure you had a copy of it as we transition into our new plans of work. So I'm not going to get too far into the weeds on that because our next meeting is going to be centered around the focal points for each of those priorities. The priorities, as you remember, have remained the same in terms of improving instructional programs in the area of ELA, math, and ICT, as Dina so eloquently just detailed. Thank you for that. As you can see, there will be a renewed focus on ELA because of the results that you saw. We have put a lot of time, effort, and energy into mathematics, and you can see in those results that we remain pretty strong there, but we are seeing slide in ELA. So we are going to be shifting focus there. And some really positive results, I think, when you're looking at the work that's happening in the area of ICT. And as I said before, I think there's a lot of opportunity there when we start thinking about, what do we want instruction to look like in our district in the next 5-10 years, and what do we really want to focus on in terms of preparing our students once they leave our doors. I think there are a lot of opportunities there. But we also are going to continue to focus on special education and improvements in that area, equity and inclusivity, and mental wellness. So we're going to be doing a deeper dive into what the specifics look like in each of those respective areas at our next meeting. But this sort of gives you sort of a rear mirror view into the work that's happened to lead us to this point, and there has been a lot of good work in terms of advancing our efforts in those areas. You had the opportunity to review the risk behavior survey results. And I think, as you can see, we're pretty much in line in most areas with the rest of the county. One thing that stood out to me, and I just wanted to bring it up at this table, as a dad and as an educator, it saddened me to see, not just in Rush-Henrietta, but countywide, such high percentages of students who reported, feeling a prolonged sense of sadness and hopelessness. But it reinforces why we need to continue that focus around student mental wellness. So that's something that we'll continue to work on. I think, generally speaking, though, the results that we saw were pretty positive in Rush-Henrietta, and in line with the rest of the county, in some cases lower than the rest of the county when it came to risk behaviors. You had a report that centered on student enrollment. When you're looking at our data over a 10-year period, it's remained relatively flat. However, where you begin to see an uptick or a slight spike is over the course of the last couple of years. If you're just looking at our data for this year compared with where we were last year, we're up almost 90 students. So we are seeing a bit of a swing the last couple of years. We saw a similar trend last year. So while you're when you're looking over a 10-year period, it's remained pretty flat, pretty constant, but we are beginning to see a spike in enrollment. As far as the demographic trends report, that has remained pretty consistent over the course of the last couple of years, as you can see with those percentages. Out of district placements, I just wanted to highlight, you probably saw that we had an increase of, I believe, 52 students. And the bulk of that is being driven by BOCES placements and homeschooling. And the reason for that is with homeschooling, and Nurlan, feel free to chime in, but I believe our hypothesis is that we're seeing a spike because of the new law around vaccination, that's driving more families to make the decision to homeschool. As far as the increase in BOCES placements, as you remember, we had a spike in the number of special education students who enrolled last year, and the bulk of those students required out-of-district placements. So that's why you see that increase there.
And some were already in BOCES placement when they transitioned here.
Right.
So it did not make sense to remove them out of their program.
Okay.
And then lastly, we have the class sizes report, and as you can see, in most all areas, we're well within district guidelines. Are there questions on any of those written reports? I just tried to give you the highlights. There were a lot of them, and these were reports that are important, and I didn't just want to gloss over them.
Yeah, I appreciate the high points, and I'm glad we had them in advance to be able to really take a hard, deep look at them ahead of the meeting. So are there any questions that anyone has? Okay.
Okay, then just a couple of oral information items. First of all, just wanted to thank all those folks who supported Breakfast with Bo on Monday. That was our first shot at it, so it was a bit of trial and error. Thank you to the board members who supported us, Jennifer Laird, May Abdullah, Anne Marie Straczynski, and I want to give a special thanks to Nurlan because she she agreed to co-host with me this first time around, and she was nothing short of masterful in the way that she explained everything that she has going on within her respective areas of supervision. She was great. So, and I think we had about 24 people that came out for the first go around. So, it was a nice morning. Also, just want to remind everybody this is NSBA Conference Week, so you'll be getting your itinerary tonight. So feel free to contact me once you review it if you have questions there. But we'll be headed there on Thursday, and we'll have a team presenting as well. So that will be very exciting.
It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, but it's a great opportunity to showcase the great work happening here in support of English language learners. And just want to remind everybody that next week on, I believe it's Tuesday the 29th, we have our policy committee meetings. All right?
Say that with a little more excitement.
Yeah, I tried to find it in me to deliver it with a little more excitement. I'll work on that. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Great. Any questions for Bo before we move on? Okay, seeing none. We'll move into board member reports, beginning with DPAC, the District Parent Advisory Council.
I said 30 seconds. I'm trying to switch gears. We did meet on the 10th. It was a good meeting. You were missed, but Nurlan carried on.
But you were in good hands.
Yes, we were. So all the board group, their liaison reports happened. We reviewed the district priorities. The priority with the U of R, Nick Coco came in with the survey to share with the representatives there, asked them to send in any concerns about questions. They asked a lot of great questions, so she got a lot of good information right there, but to follow up with her. Andy filled in for Shirley Smith-Gravanda for our transportation workshop, and I think it enlightened many of the people sitting at the table what really goes into having our transportation department. And we're not the only school district that's in need of bus drivers, and they were amazed at how many miles we go and where some of our students go to and the students we're responsible for, and the homeless, if you will, wherever they are coming from. It was just a great eye-opening opportunity, and I think you did a great job, Andy.
Thank you.
You know, stepping in, so there was a lot of information shared that night. I think we might have even finished early.
That's a coincidence.
Yeah. But that's because we didn't have your report, so, so, good stuff.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
The Henrietta Youth Development Advisory Committee.
We met October 14th, and they have a lot going on. They're planning several events for students, and the goal is to find opportunities for our students to engage in the community and giving back. They have open mic night. They're planning that coming up this spring. They're trying to find a venue for that. They would like to have it in a local, like a coffee shop. So we're actually going next month. Our next meeting is going to be at Loving Cup at RIT. That's for a potential spot for open mic. And they're trying to get Mr. Switek, he was here, to advise them on how to run the program, what to include, and how to get kids involved. Next thing we discussed is they talked about vaping and how to plan a workshop for parents and students about that. They talked about the dangers of vaping and the new rules, New York State law that's was gonna come out and was postponed. So they're going to hold a couple of workshops around the dangers of vaping, and they're gonna do separate one for adults, parents, and then one for students. That's going to be at the library, and they're gonna send out invitations for students. And they were talking about how to get Nirlan to see how to push it out for everyone. What else we talked about? The Hall of Fame, the Student Hall of Fame nominations are coming out soon, and they're trying to see how to make it easier for teachers, counselors to nominate students without burdening them with too much work. But at the same time, they want to get enough information to have an idea why that person is nominated and what they contributed to the community. So they're meeting to discuss how to modify the application forms without putting in too much work on teachers or counsel or whoever wants to nominate a student. The MLK celebration is coming up January 16th, and there is a change of location that's gonna, they used to have it at the Guardian Angels Church. I think they're going through a renovation, so they're not gonna have the celebration there, but before, they're gonna give people enough time with the new location when they find out where they're gonna have it. What else we talked about? I think a couple of things are coming up. The Halloween party that was last Saturday. It was great success. A lot of people turned out. So, and students volunteered there, and they helped come up with ideas of what to do with the kids. So it was phenomenal to see them coming up with the program, what to do at the program, and volunteer and stay after to clean up and make sure everyone has their goodie bags for the kids. So I love that idea. They're gonna have a hamster ball race. You heard right? It's at the rec center coming up November 16th, and Make a Difference Day is October 26th, Saturday from 9 to 12. And there's a teen night at the rec center at November 23rd. So, exciting stuff.
Very good. The Information Exchange Committee of the Monroe County School Boards.
And mental health partnerships. They talked about the increasing need for mental health services for children and their families, where the trend obviously keeps going up over the last 10 years. They mostly talked about, at least what I took from it, and Daphne friends, they talked about they talked about the different things that each system needs, so they compared the hospitals to the schools to the mental health clinics, and everyone was asking for something different, but no one else really knew what everyone else was doing or what they needed, so they're kind of coming together to figure out what everyone needs and trying to come up with a few simple forms that everyone can do to make it a little bit easier for the families and the students. And they also shared some of the things that we've heard Nolan mention before, some of the positive things about having these systems in school, how they miss fewer classes, are more likely to come. And I know Nolan was very proud, as we've heard before, that we're fortunate because we're not being charged for that, and we have people that are able to attend a little bit more. But we found out that some of the other places, it costs a lot, and sometimes parents have to make the choice whether to get those services paid for or not, and sometimes physically they're not able to because of the finances. I think that was that, yeah. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. The Instructional Space Committee.
We met on October 17th, and Pat went through the committee charge for everyone. There was a lot of new faces this year, which was great to see. And he went through the timeline. Then Karen Milborn took us through the current enrollments, the class sizes, the enrollment trends, and then demographic information. So we went through in detail of every report that Bo showed in his, or gave us in his report. I think it's gonna be a great committee. There's a lot of new faces who don't understand how it works. So I think it's gonna be nice that they are gonna learn how it works and why the reconfiguration happened, and the projections of us growing and what that means, because you're already seeing a discrepancy between different schools already. So it's going to be an exciting year. Our next meeting is November 14th, and Diane has graciously offered to cover for me for that meeting.
Very good. Thank you very much. And that concludes our business. So at this time, I would accept a motion to adjourn. Moved by Nikki, seconded by, oh, I'm sorry. Diane, did you want to say something?
Recap.
I'm sorry. I'm in too much of a hurry. I skipped over the recap. We're
Is
not
it baseball
we're not
game or
adjourning yet. Board meeting recap and preview. I'm sorry.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay, recap. Good meeting. We have a conference coming up on Thursday, and we have several presenters. We can't wait to go and encourage our fellow board members. We have agenda setting on the 28th. We have a rock and policy meeting at 7 a.m. on the 29th. And that looks to be it.
Okay. All right. Should we try to adjourn now? All right. Motion to adjourn by Nikki, seconded by Diane. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. We are adjourned.
Yay.
Have a good night, everyone.
You barely made it.
Did you get all the,
You did a very good job.
Were you keeping her time, Andy?
Yeah, it's the other way around. Wait till we talk budget. Last meeting,